Today is the 6th day of this February 1984 7-day retreat. Today we will work on a koan taken from the Mumonkan. The book in front of me is comments on the Mumonkan by Shibayama. It is number 5 and the title is Kyogen's Man Up a Tree. All of us, I think, have heard this koan before, maybe heard comments on it before. Doesn't mean that one can't listen to it afresh. Enter into it. Not with memories. That's the only way to talk and comment and listen to a koan. Because none of us is the same from moment to moment. This is how the koan reads. Master Kyogen said, "It is like a man up a tree, or a woman up a tree, who hangs from a branch by his or her mouth. The hands cannot grasp a bough, the feet cannot touch the tree, or the ground for that matter. Another person comes under the tree and asks the meaning of Bodhidharmas coming from the West. If the hanging person does not answer, he or she does not meet the questioner's need. If he answers, he will lose his life, or she will lose her life. At such a time, how should she answer? It's like a person up a tree hanging from a branch by the mouth. The hands can't grasp a bough, the feet can't touch the tree or the ground. Another person comes along and asks the meaning of Bodhidharma coming from the West. Or, what's the meaning of Zen? Or what's the meaning of life? What is truth? What is reality? Or who are you? Or who am I? Tell me. I need to know. If the hanging person doesn't answer, he fails the questioner, doesn't meet the questioner's need. If she answers, she will lose her life. At such a time, what is the answer? Mumon's commentary says, even though your eloquence flows like a river, it is all to no avail. Even if you can expound the whole Buddhist literature, it is also of no use. If you can really answer it, you will revive the dead and kill the living. However, if you're unable to answer, wait for the next Buddha to come and ask him. the future Buddha. Maitreya is supposed to be getting ready in heaven, in some heaven, to come. It's a very familiar theme, the second coming, the Messiah coming, the future Savior. Who knows when? Actually, we need him now. Or do we? And Mumon's poem reads, Kyogen is just gibbering. How vicious his poison is. Stopping up the monks' mouths, he makes their devil's eyes glare. Another translation says, stopping up the monks' mouths, he watches them with the piercing eyes of a devil. Before commenting, let me just read a few paragraphs about Kyogen's life. His times aren't exactly known. It is 9th century, something in the 800s. He was a man of erudition and strong memory, and was unusually bright and talented. From his childhood on, he was fond of learning. He first studied under Master Hyakujo, but as the latter died soon after he started, he continued his Zen training under Isan. Says here, Isan recognized unusual genius in him and wished somehow to open his spiritual eye. One day he called Kyogen and said, I do not want to hear from you what you have learned from scriptures, nor the result of your accumulated studies and speculations. Just give me the essential word about yourself before you were born, before you knew either east or west. At this unexpected question, Kyogen was quite at a loss and could not utter a word. He searched diligently, but each time he presented an answer to Isan, he found the master flatly rejected it. Finally, with his energy all exhausted, Kyogen came to Isan and implored him, please teach it to me. Even if I might show it to you, said Isan, it is my word and has nothing to do with your answer. And he paid no attention to Kyogen's plea. In disappointment, Kyogen took out his books and the notes from his years of study and burned them all, saying, pictures of cake do not satisfy one's hunger. Driven to despair by his inability to break through the barrier, he gave up his training and left Isan's monastery in tears. He visited the grave of a national teacher and decided to lead his life as a nameless gravekeeper there. Although his biography does not give us any details, his inner struggle and searching must have continued and increased day and night, even after he despaired of his ability and decided to live as a gravekeeper. One day, while cleaning the yard, Kyogen threw the rubbish into the bushes. A stone hit a bamboo, he heard the crash, and at that moment, all of a sudden, all doubts vanished. I won't go into Shibayama's description. . So from that little background story, one can see where this koan comes from. He made it up himself. Hanging, being able to reach nothing, and someone asking, what is it, or who are you? What is the truth? What is mu? Or just what is it? Show me. Tell me. It says here, if he doesn't answer, he fails the questioner. If there is a real urgency in any questioner, there is an urgency to answer, to help. Maybe Kyogen here, being that man up a tree, he was a monk, and there is a vow that a monk takes not to do this work for himself, but for the sake of all sentient beings. Never to fail anyone who has a need, a quest, a request. Yet if he answers, he falls to the ground, falls to his death. I remember telling this story once to an old man who was a scientist, and who loved puzzles. It was his hobby. He had a whole box of puzzles, these things, where one hook hooks into something else, and the more difficult it was, the more he loved, and he could spend a long time. And he always figured it out. Any puzzle, any riddle, it was a tremendous challenge to him. If he read Sherlock Holmes, whom he loved, he would read these stories sometimes to us. He'd close the book at a certain point and said, now let's figure this out ourselves. Who did what? And he was interested, to a degree, in this Zen work, this Zen training, and asked me about it. I told him about this koan. It fascinated him immediately. He thought about it, came up with an answer. That didn't take him too long. Come up with an answer. And I said, what if the teacher to whose room you go, if he just rang the bell when you gave that answer, which means, no, leave. There was a certain irritation already. He didn't like that. He was a revered person. And that didn't fit the whole image. That a person who taught others, and others listened to him. But he got over the irritation and thought again and came up with several answers. And each time he said, what if that bell rang again? You had to leave. And at one point he said, really quite irritated, I'd never go back there again. It's the easiest way of resolving a dilemma is to walk away from it. Particularly if it just doesn't just involve the intellect, but one's whole existence as somebody who needs to prove himself or herself or be approved. Be respected, not be rejected. In other words, as long as one lives as an image of oneself, there's the constant danger of rejection, hurt, the need to be confirmed, the need to affirm oneself in the eyes of others and one's own inner eyes, with which one looks at oneself as being this somebody. Either wanting to be somebody in others' eyes or wanting to become somebody. Which is all a mental process of imagery. Can you see that? Being told, no, this isn't it, I won't tell you, this is no good, or being wrung out. Not that it is the way that we're working here, but one can visualize it. Maybe one has gone through a similar scenes. What is it that gets hurt and dejected and depressed? One has to look at that and resolve that, see that clearly for oneself. This fragile existence as an image that constantly needs defense and protection, warding off attacks or the hurt, the bitter, painful hurt of what one thinks is rejection, disapproval, the balloon sort of collapsing, and the pain of that collapse, and then the new image of being nobody, just being dirt under other people's feet. One can create endless images or verbalize it to oneself, and in verbalizing it, the anxiety and the pain mounts. is Zen work, if one is working on a koan or an inquiry, because of one's ancient conditioning, usually the question is not there as a question in itself, sufficient in itself, to be asked and to be looked into and to be listened to, and not knowing the answer. This is usually not enough. Our conditioning says, get through it. Get the answer and be somebody who has gotten the answer, like others who seem to have gotten answers. Or so I hear. That one needs to resolve who one is quite different from having to solve the inquiry for the approval of a teacher or of one's peers. It's a totally different matter. To need to find out who one is, whether one is just this bunch of painful or joyful images. Which are totally at the mercy of the environment. Image can only hold itself up if there are others to confirm it. If others ignore it, there's feeling of abandonment, loneliness. I don't say this is the only origin of the feeling of loneliness, but it is a big ingredient in it. The image of the one who is not liked, who is not as popular as all the others seem to be. And wanting to be as popular. This, if one is so constituted and has been brought up this way, this goal can arouse tremendous energies. Images can arouse tremendous energies to become the winner of the downhill skiing. You can say, no, these people have no images. They just love skiing. I wonder. If you would put yourself into this situation of incredible pressure, there wasn't this tremendous lure of being the winner of the world. Seeing yourself being decorated with this gold medal. Why, all the eyes, not only of the people there, but I don't know how many millions of television eyes watch. So images can create formidable energy. Seeing oneself succeed. And they can, in the same way, be total drainers of energy if one doesn't succeed, if one fails, and sees oneself as a failure. And adopts that image of the loser. Who am I? Or what is the truth and reality about myself and this whole world of things and people that I have practically only images about? attitudes toward opinions. I really don't know. I know the images, they're there. But I see what they are. Creations of thought, creations of the past. Who am I? Or what is it that's hanging here? Or what is muh? Muh meaning nothing. Having nothing. Not the idea of it, but the reality of it. What is that? Something insists on knowing it. Here it is the questioner underneath the tree. Maybe a demanding teacher. But oneself, in oneself. There is a gnawing demand beyond all images. To come out of this shell of isolation, the bubble we talked about since the beginning of this retreat. The bubble of ideas and attitudes, the whole thing. The whole body responds to that. The whole body responds to this idea bubble and feels dull, foggy, numb. Or if a nice dream comes up, very excited, a lot of energy. If the dream bursts, then the energy is drained. What does it really mean not to know? Hanging there, not able to grasp anything, although one does grasp, but what one grasps is thoughts. Visions, experiences. And the feet have no ground to stand on. Because the ground we stand on usually itself is an idea, my beliefs. It doesn't necessarily have to be religious belief. There's so many beliefs that we don't know are beliefs, assumptions. to see all that, then what is there? And can one hang there without creating a new platform? A new mode of existing as somebody, somewhere, in thought? If it's seen, it collapses, and then what? Does one quickly build up something else? Or can there just be this hanging there, not knowing? It says here, if he answers, or if she answers, she will lose, or he will lose his life. It is this letting go. Letting go of the last bit of branch, security, certainty, without knowing what's going to come of it. Without creating a new image of what one is going to be if one lets go, an enlightened person. One idea, maybe many others, a free person. Letting go means dying to all images, not knowing. Not knowing. Not knowing who or what or me. Is that possible? Don't know. Images which come up have to be seen, or else we become those, we are those, we walk in a certain image. Have a certain image of ourselves, we walk in a certain way, we have another image, we walk in another way. They rule us, become real, even though they're not. Real in their influence. And of course the very powerful image of helping others here. In this case, there's this other person who is in a quandary. It can be a real welcome getaway from one's own dilemma, trying to help somebody else out of his or her dilemma. Trying to give advice, counseling. It's all right to give advice or counsel. I don't know about giving advice, but to discuss something with somebody if one is bare oneself to what is going on within oneself, and it is not an escape. An escape from one's own nagging problems, rather dealing with other people's problems. Other people's problems are one's own, and this is the only way in which one can really work together, to be transparent to what's going on inside. If that transparency is not there, help given is very limited, very, very limited. And sometimes very blind and even misleading. So to watch as one sits becomes very boring. The fantasies that come up to do something for somebody else or for oneself. How to help others. Or not just how to help others, but to think about what terrible state other people are in. One can really fill the mind completely with worrying about how badly off, how deluded other people are, how ignorant and how stupid, what they do to me, what I have to suffer at their hands. Always away from who am I? Hanging here, not knowing. So, quite often this thing that so many people mention, which is so bothersome to many people who do Zazen, that there are so many thoughts filling the mind. Not that it is anything unusual, it's not unusual. But maybe thoughts fill the mind as something to do or think about rather than to know nothing and be with the condition of knowing nothing, being nobody, and not knowing what's going to happen next. Really plumbing that without knowing any result or outcome, positive, negative, one doesn't know. If that is the consuming concern, to dive into that, you may say, well, diving is not the expression, proper expression, and find your own expression or no expression. Just being that lump of not knowing, with all the feelings that are there, not knowing what they are and yet allowing them to be there. Deeply concerned with questioning this condition completely. Then one may find there are not so many thoughts in the mind because they distract. Then one can't be here. And one needs to be here. And please don't misunderstand this as condemnation of thoughts or needing to control thoughts. There's no need to control thoughts. You can't. Well, one can have devices, but there comes a point at which they backfire and one is swamped with thoughts. All those thoughts one has held back. A moment of a let up of the control, and there they are. No, who is the controller of thoughts anyways? That's what I'm trying to find out. Without control, without device, so let thoughts come and go. But do I seek a refuge in there, an existence in there, a hope or an energy which thoughts can produce? tremendous energy can be produced by thinking, looking out at this beautiful snow and thinking of going skiing. Getting together, skiing party, having beer. It's a tremendous thing to look forward to, and away from this state. But one can detect it. It comes up, and one doesn't spin it out. One comes back to the questioning. Because one understands very well from one's life that the constant escape into, away from the problems, the dilemma, the pain, or the boredom of one's daily life, the constant escape only creates new problems and a division, a separation, which always ends up in sorrow or depression. So in sitting there, hanging there, not knowing, can one abstain from spinning out fantasies about what one is going to do later? For the time being, renouncing that pleasurable energy, which can come up just like that. And not renouncing it as an act of willpower, which is repressive, but seeing the situation, seeing what one needs to do. Then it's not renunciation. Then it's just who or what is it? Mu. Not trying to succeed, not afraid to fail, but wanting to find out. Because if I don't know who I am, then immediately I create enemies. Those others. It says here, even though your eloquence flows like a river, it is all to no avail. If you can really answer it, or if understanding dawns or bursts out, whichever way, it says here, you will revive the dead and kill the living, which means find out for yourself. sentence of warning if you are unable to answer. Wait for Maitreya to come. It's a warning not to postpone this work. And yet not to work under pressure. It's neither postponing. I have time, I have other lifetimes to come. These are ideas, maybe very comforting. So one can push this away, but as one pushes the work away, the dilemma has not been pushed away. The conflicts of one's daily life continue. So how can one work without the pressure of time or the postponement in time? It's very simple. Questioning, attending, looking, listening. Who, mu, or what is it? It's outside of time. There's only who, there's only mu, or what. And understanding can only happen now. It can never happen in the future. Never. Future is thought, visions, ideas, postponement. Hanging in there is now. What is it? Listen. We'll stop here for today.